Steve Harvey once told a woman in the front row of a comedy club that he was going to marry her, and he did. Jason Momoa told his mother at age 8 that he wanted Lisa Bonet after seeing her on TV, and decades later, he married her. Danielle Caesar tweeted for 5 years that she would date Jake T. Austin, and eventually she did. From stand-up stages to backstage meet and greets, from hair salons to late-night TV tapings, some celebrities have fallen for the fans in their orbit, and the stories behind how it all happened are something else. So, here are celebrities who crushed on fans, and the fans who crushed right back. Steve Harvey, the prophecy in Memphis. Steve Harvey met Marjorie at a Memphis comedy club, where he approached her and said on stage, "I don't know who you are, but I'm going to marry you." That is not fiction. That is how one of the most recognized men in American entertainment met the woman who would become his wife, and the road from that comedy club to their wedding day was anything but a straight line. In the late 1980s, Steve Harvey was not yet the household name he would become. He wasn't the entertaining TV host we know today. He was just another stand-up comic looking for his break. He was grinding through the comedy circuit, performing at clubs across the South, trying to build something from nothing. And on one particular night in Memphis, Tennessee, somewhere around 1987, everything changed. Although they didn't get married until 2007, comedian and TV host Steve Harvey initially met his future wife Marjorie back in 1987 at a comedy club in Memphis, Tennessee. At that time, Harvey was performing a set. He was in the middle of his routine when the door opened and a woman walked in. Steve was performing a stand-up set, and Marjorie Harvey walked in late. The room was going, the material was landing, but Harvey stopped. He saw her and he said it, right there, in front of an entire audience. The comic proclaimed that he would marry Marjorie upon seeing her, and just like he said he would, he did. Now imagine being in that audience. Imagine hearing a comedian, mid-set, pause his whole act, to declare his intention to marry someone he had never spoken a single word to. That is the kind of conviction that either makes you a romantic hero or gets you escorted out of the building. The two struck up a connection after that show. The two briefly dated in 1990, but things didn't get serious until they reconnected in 2005, about 15 years later. 15 years. That is how long the universe kept these two apart. Steve went through 2 marriages in between. He built his entire empire, the TV hosting, the radio show, the books, the suits, all of it, before the story that started in a Memphis comedy club reached its conclusion. According to Harvey himself, the pair dated until like 1989, with Steve going on to marry Mary Shackelford from 1996 until 2005. He eventually reconnected with Marjorie, stating it was like being reborn. That reconnection was the turning point. After 2 failed marriages and years in the entertainment trenches, Harvey found his way back to the woman he had pointed at from a stage, and in 2007, the prophecy from that Memphis comedy club was fulfilled. Steve Harvey married Marjorie Bridges. What makes this story remarkable is not just the grand declaration. It is the patience. It is the fact that life took both of them on completely separate journeys, through heartbreak and personal reinvention, only to bring them back together when the timing was finally right. Jason Momoa, the 8-year-old with a plan. Most childhood crushes fade away by the time the homework gets hard. Jason Momoa's did not. Speaking about his obsession on The Late Late Show with James Corden in 2017, Jason Momoa mentioned developing a crush at the age of 8. Ever since I was 8 years old and I saw her on the TV, I was like, "Mommy, I want that one," the actor recalled. The her in that sentence was Lisa Bonet, who was playing Denise Huxtable on The Cosby Show. An 8-year-old boy in Hawaii saw an actress on a sitcom and decided with absolute certainty that she was the one. He fell in love with her years earlier when he first saw her on his TV screen. Jason confessed in an interview for the November 19 issue of Esquire that he was immediately smitten with his now wife. When he tuned into The Cosby Show in the 1980s and saw Lisa as Denise Huxtable on the sitcom, that was the beginning of a fixation that would span decades. Momoa was not a casual admirer, he was locked in. He grew up watching Bonet's career evolve from The Cosby Show to a different world, to her work in film, and through all of it, his feelings never wavered. In the profile, the actor, 40, talks about his dream girl wife Lisa Bonet, 51, saying she was literally my childhood crush. I mean, I didn't tell her that. I didn't let her know I was a stalker until after we had the kids. He shared with Esquire, that is Momoa's humor, blunt, slightly unhinged, and completely genuine. He knew how it sounded. He leaned into it anyway. The years passed. Momoa grew up and became an actor in his own right, landing roles that would eventually lead him to Baywatch Hawaii, and later, Game of Thrones. But through all of that professional growth, the childhood fixation on Lisa Bonet remained lodged in his mind like an anchor. He carried it with him from Hawaii to Hollywood, never expecting it to actually go anywhere. Until it did, meeting Lisa Bonet for the first time in 2005 through some mutual friends at a jazz club. Jason Momoa was quick to impress her. After Bonet spoke for the first time with Momoa, the actor claimed, "I turned to my friend and was like, pretends to scream. I had fecking fireworks going off inside, man." That jazz club in Los Angeles became the intersection where a childhood dream met reality. Momoa didn't have a car, so he convinced Bonet to drive him home. When she took him to the hotel where he was staying, they stopped for a beer. The actor couldn't believe it could happen, but when ordering her beer, Bonet asked for a Guinness, which is his favorite beer. It was those small, strange details, the coincidence of a shared beer preference, on a night that was already operating on borrowed magic, that cemented the evening in his memory. Unaware of Momoa's crush on her, Lisa Bonet spoke about their first meet and stated, "In that moment, love came and it came big, and he did not run as I think a lot of men do." The two began dating almost immediately, getting together in 2005, the pair married in 2017, but we were all saddened to hear that they'd be splitting almost 5 years later. Their journey ultimately ended in 2022 when they announced their separation, and Lisa Bonet officially filed for divorce in January 2024, citing irreconcilable differences. But even with the separation, what remains is the improbability of the whole thing. A boy in Hawaii saw a woman on television and said out loud that he wanted her, and decades later, he married her. Jason Momoa's takeaway was simple. If someone says something isn't possible, I'm like, listen here, I married Lisa Bonet. Anything is F-part possible. John Krasinski, The 75 Viewing Confession. John Krasinski fell for Emily Blunt before he ever met her. The vehicle of that infatuation was a 2006 comedy about the fashion industry called The Devil Wears Prada. I think I saw The Devil Wears Prada like 70 times before I met Emily. Krasinski admitted in an interview, not 5 times, not 10, 70 or more times. Depending on which interview you catch him in, the number fluctuates somewhere between 70 and 75. That is not casual appreciation, that is devotion. John Krasinski is really not afraid of admitting that he's adored his now wife, Emily Blunt, for as long as they've known one another. During an interview, Krasinski stated that his favorite film was The Devil Wears Prada, a 2006 romantic comedy starring Emily Blunt. The film was Blunt's breakout role, playing the exasperated assistant Emily, alongside Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway, and Krasinski watched it over and over and over again. When the two finally met in 2008, Krasinski did not play it cool. Krasinski said that when they first met, he told Blunt he was a big fan of hers. "I was full stalker status," Krasinski said on the Graham Norton show, shaping his fingers like a pair of binoculars. That is not the opening line most dating experts would recommend, but it worked. Krasinski fell in love with Blunt the moment he met her in a cafe in Los Angeles. He declared, "I was so nervous. I was like, oh God, I think I'm going to fall in love with her. As I shook her hand, I went, I like you." Emily Blunt at the time had no context for any of this. Emily Blunt pretty much had no idea who John Krasinski was before she met her future husband. By contrast, Blunt was only a fan of the British original of The Office then, and didn't know the US version on which Krasinski starred. He knew every frame of her breakout film, and she didn't even know his show existed. But the connection was undeniable. Despite that, it was still love at first sight, and they got engaged within 10 months. And when they started dating, the Devil Wears Prada obsession became a running joke in their relationship. She walked through the door and I flipped the channel so fast. I think she thought I was watching something inappropriate, he said. He was hiding the fact that he was watching her movie, again, like a teenager caught doing something embarrassing. Emily Blunt revealed her husband's depth of knowledge. He knows every single one of Anne Hathaway's outfits down pat. She recalled, he was watching the montage of when she has all the different amazing outfits. And he was watching and he goes, "And that's my favorite outfit." Her response was to tell him to get a grip, which is entirely fair. Krasinski even joked, "I'm lucky enough that she stayed with me," and didn't realize that she had really married her stalker. The two married in 2010, and since their marriage, the pair have had 2 children and collaborated on several projects. A Quiet Place, which they starred in and he directed, became a massive box office success and proved that the couple's chemistry extended far beyond the living room couch, where Krasinski had rewatched The Devil Wears Prada for the 70-somethingth time. Hailey Baldwin. From Belieber to Mrs. Bieber. Before she was Hailey Bieber, model, business mogul, and one half of one of the most photographed couples on the planet. She was a teenager on social media, losing her mind over Justin Bieber. Hailey Bieber, née Baldwin, was a well-documented believer before she and the singer kicked off a whirlwind romance that resulted in their 2018 wedding. The paper trail is extensive. Hailey Baldwin famously caught Bieber fever hard as a teenager, attending Justin's concerts and even meeting him in 2009. According to her old tweets, she was also a big fan of Jelena, writing in 2011, "I don't care what anyone says, but Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez together is the definition of a teenage dream." That tweet is still out there, preserved in the amber of internet archives. She was literally rooting for Justin to be with someone else, while harboring her own feelings. The irony is almost too perfect. Hailey's dad, Steven, introduced the pair backstage at the Today Show in 2009. She was around 12 years old. Justin was around 15. It was a meet and greet moment that for millions of other fans would have been the pinnacle, the best possible version of how that story ends. You meet your idol. You get a photo. You go home and scream about it on the internet. Hailey did that. But her story didn't stop there. As Elite Daily notes, a much younger Hailey tweeted at and about the star, waited in a throng of fans to catch a glimpse of him outside her hotel, and eventually succeeded in meeting him thanks to her famous dad, Stephen Baldwin. Over the following years, Justin and Hailey would cross paths again and again, and eventually the dynamic shifted. She was no longer a fan in the background. She became someone he noticed, someone he wanted to spend time with. Off to a rocky start, Justin Bieber and Hailey Baldwin had briefly dated, from December 2015 to January 2016 before splitting, and then getting back together a few years later in May 2018. They sure didn't waste any time. In July 2018, the couple got engaged, and by November, they confirmed that they had tied the knot. During an interview in 2019 with Vogue, model Hailey Baldwin denied ever being a superfan of hubby Justin Bieber due to her teen years. However, there's plenty of hilarious evidence that proves otherwise. From cringeworthy tweets to photos on the red carpet of Justin's film Never Say Never, it seems that she was at one time a true believer. She has tried to distance herself from the fan label, which makes sense. Nobody wants to be reduced to the kid who tweeted heart emojis at her future husband. But the internet does not forget. The pair welcomed their first son, Jack Blues Bieber, in 2024. The teenage girl who tweeted about Justin Bieber from her bedroom is now raising a child with him. That arc from screaming fan to spouse and parent is the kind of story that makes every person with a celebrity crush think, even for a split second, that maybe there is a chance. If there is a single story that proves the power of relentlessly speaking your dreams into existence on social media, it is the story of Danielle Caesar and Jake T. Austin. In 2011, a die-hard Jake T. Austin fan named Danielle Caesar met the Wizards of Waverly Place star who played Max Russo on the show at a meet and greet in New York City, before she started tweeting about him constantly for the next 5 years. 5 years? That is 1,825 days of dedicated, public, unrelenting manifestation. Some of Caesar's tweets read, "Me and Jacket Austin are getting married. Sh equals X. He just doesn't know it yet." That is the kind of tweet that most people would delete after a week out of embarrassment. Danielle did not delete it. She doubled down. She kept going. She treated her Twitter account like a vision board, and her follow-through was unmatched. Then, in 2016, something that defied all statistical probability occurred. In 2016, the then 21-year-old actor confirmed the unlikely union with an intimate selfie of the pair kissing on Instagram. He also tagged Caesar's account in the photo and captioned the post, "I'm crazy for her." The internet collectively lost its composure. Here was a fan who had publicly, loudly, and persistently declared her intention to be with a celebrity for half a decade, and then it actually happened. The cynics were silenced, the dreamers were emboldened, and Danielle Caesar became the unofficial patron saint of shooting your shot. For Danielle Caesar, it comes by tweeting about her love for Jake T. Austin, only to go on to date him years later. The couple is no longer together, but Caesar should be teaching master classes on landing a celebrity partner. While the relationship eventually ran its course, the story of how it started remains one of the most cited examples of a fan successfully crossing the line from admirer to partner. It is proof, at least in one case, that persistence and an internet connection can move mountains, or at the very least, get you a date with the guy from Wizards of Waverly Place. Conan O'Brien did not meet his wife at a bar. He did not meet her at a party. He did not meet her through a mutual friend. In 1999, Liza was working as a copywriter for the advertising agency Foot, Cone & Belding when they were approached by Late Night with Conan O'Brien to film a segment for the show about working with their worst advertisers. When Conan visited her office, the pair connected instantly. It was a comedy segment, a bit about making better TV commercials, and somewhere in the middle of it, the host of the show spotted Liza Powell and forgot he was supposed to be funny. Somewhere in the vault at NBC, there's footage of me literally falling for my wife on camera. Conan said of their meeting during a 2012 interview with Piers Morgan. That footage exists. It was eventually uploaded to Conan's official YouTube account in 2020. And if you watch it, you can see it happening in real time. The comedian's focus shifting from the bit to the woman sitting in the room. For O'Brien, it was clearly love at first sight, as he sweetly recounted. During a September 2020 appearance on the podcast IMO with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson, I immediately start talking to Liza, and then I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm just saying, wait, so where'd you go to school? He stopped performing. He stopped doing his job. He just started asking her questions, trying to figure out who she was. That pivot from comedian to genuinely curious human is what sealed it. Yes, you should have children. Your children should be my children. O'Brien later recalled thinking at the time they met. Conan was thinking about having children with this woman before he had even learned her last name. That is either the purest form of romantic intuition or the behavior of someone who needs supervision. Either way, it worked out. The pair immediately hit it off and dated for nearly 18 months before tying the knot on January 12, 2002. The wedding took place in the presence of relatives and close acquaintances. They married in Seattle, Liza's hometown. They had their daughter Neve in 2003 and son Beckett in 2005. Powell O'Brien claims that she has rewatched the pivotal episode of her husband's show where they met many times, but noted that Conan himself won't revisit it. He wants to remember it instead. He says he prefers his memory to whatever the truth is. She said in 2022 on the podcast Inside Conan, "There is something impossibly tender about that detail. A man who has made his career on cameras and recordings, refusing to rewatch the single most important moment of his personal life, because his memory of it is sacred." According to several reports, Powell resolutely stood by Conan when he hit a rough patch in his career after being dropped from The Tonight Show in 2010. That period was one of the darkest chapters in Conan's professional life, and Liza was the constant in the middle of all of it. The woman he spotted during a commercial segment on Late Night became the person who held it all together when the late night wars came for him. He was already someone's dream. Celebrity hairstylist Jillian Dempsey, née Fink, gave trims and crushed on actor Patrick Dempsey for 3 whole years before he finally asked her out. 3 years of appointments, 3 years of haircuts, 3 years of a woman silently nursing a crush on a man who kept coming back to her chair without making a move. Jillian Fink was extremely excited when Patrick Dempsey made an appointment with her for a haircut in 1994. She found him cute and constantly flirted with Patrick. Now, picture the scenario. You are a professional hairstylist working in Los Angeles. One day, Patrick Dempsey walks through the door. He sits down in your chair, and for the next 3 years, he keeps coming back. And you keep hoping that this time will be the time he notices that the conversation is more than small talk. The famed actor visited his hairstylist for 3 years before asking her on a date. Now, the fan and the celebrity have been married for well over 20 years. When he finally asked her out, the floodgates opened. Their romance worked fast to make up for lost time, and they moved in together 3 months after their first date, marrying in 1999. 3 months from first date to cohabitation. After 3 years of anticipation, the relationship accelerated at a pace that would terrify most human beings. But when you have spent 156 weeks cutting someone's hair and wondering what could be, you do not waste time once the door finally opens. They married in 1999 and have 3 children together named Tallulah, Darby, and Sullivan. They've stuck together ever since, even reconciling after a near divorce a few years ago. As Patrick revealed to People, like most long marriages, theirs hit turbulence. They nearly split. but they found their way back to each other. The same pattern of patience and persistence that defined the first 3 years, of Jillian sitting in her salon waiting for the man in the chair to ask the right question. There's a specific artifact of pre-internet celebrity crushes that keeps showing up in these stories. The poster on the wall. Before social media, before tweets and Instagram, there was the magazine cutout taped to a bedroom wall. And for some people, that poster became a prophecy. Katie Holmes used to tell her Dawson's Creek castmates about her crush on the Top Gun movie star, noting that she even had a poster of Tom Cruise on her wall. Then she told 17 magazine in 2004 that she used to think she was going to marry Tom Cruise. And in May 2005, that is precisely what began to happen. Holmes and Cruise started dating, became one of the most talked about couples in Hollywood, and married in 2006. Despite the love and Surrey, their child who was born in 2006, the couple eventually divorced in 2012. The poster to marriage pipeline had a shelf life, but for a few years, Katie Holmes lived inside a scenario that millions of fans had only ever imagined. Katie Holmes was a fan of Tom Cruise long before she married him. According to her ex-high school classmate, Holmes would even pray for Tom Cruise's good fortune during religion class. That detail pushes the story past admiration and into the territory of genuine devotion. This was not a passing fancy, this was a teenager who had incorporated a movie star into her spiritual life. The poster on the wall resurfaces in other stories too. Prince William himself confirmed that Kate Middleton had 10 or 20 pictures of me up on her wall at university. Kate denied it, but William said it, and they got married in 2011. Whether it was 10 pictures or 20 or 0, the idea that the future Queen of England once had a celebrity crush wall dedicated to the man she would marry is the kind of fairy tale that feels engineered by a screenwriter. Then there's the rock and roll version of this story. An original Green Day fan writer, Adrian Nesser, struck up a conversation with the band's frontman during a concert in Minneapolis in 1990, asking Billie Joe where she could get a copy of their CD. It was a simple question, where can I buy your album? And from that one interaction, a decades-long relationship was born. It was backstage at a 1990 show in Minnesota where Green Day frontman Billie Joe Armstrong first met his future wife. Adrienne Armstrong, née Nesser, had seen the band the night before at a house party and was impressed enough that she decided to catch their show the following day and buy an album. Though the two didn't start dating then, the backstage interaction left Billie Joe with a crush. A crush that would simmer, fade, reignite, and eventually catch fire. The pair dated long distance for 18 months before calling it quits, and Adrienne was later engaged to someone else. After reconnecting in 1993, Adrienne moved to California to be with Billie, and the pair became engaged within 2 weeks. 2 weeks from reconnection to engagement? That is the tempo of people who already know. They had done the slow version once before. This time, there was no hesitation. Billie met his wife at one of his concerts, and she was a big fan of Green Day. They married in 1994 and have 2 sons together. From a fan asking about a CD at a Minneapolis show, to a marriage that has lasted 3 decades, that is the story of Billie Joe Armstrong and Adrienne Nesser. It started with the simplest possible question a fan could ask, and it led to a lifetime. These stories are not fairy tales. Even though they sound like them, they are reminders that the gap between celebrities and the people who admire them is sometimes smaller than we think. A comedy club in Memphis, a jazz club in Los Angeles, a hair salon, a late-night TV taping, a Disney Channel meet and greet. These are ordinary places where people crossed paths, felt something, and acted on it. The outcomes vary. Some of these couples are still together, some have split, some had their time and moved on. But in every case, the moment of connection was real. And for the fans in the audience in the salon chair behind the Twitter handle or holding the poster on the wall, the impossible became possible even if only for a while.